Approximately 70% of countries around the world have abolished the death penalty. Capital punishment has been largely eliminated in Europe, Africa, and South America. And yet, several countries in Southeast Asia still have the capital punishment. In this episode, we'll take a closer look at the state of death penalty in Southeast Asia. My name is Angeline, and this is the Daily Watch. One of the few exceptions to the global abolitionist trend in the death penalty is the ASEAN region, where many countries retain and regularly implement the death penalty. Last month, the United Nations General Assembly voted on a resolution calling for a moratorium on the use of capital punishment. A total of 120 nations voted for the resolution, which called for nations to restrict the use of the death penalty with the aim of eventually eliminating it altogether. Only 3 countries from the ASEAN region voted to support this: Cambodia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Singapore and Brunei voted against it, while the remaining 5 nations, among them some of the region's most eager users of the death penalty, abstained. Which countries in Southeast Asia have the death penalty? It is no surprise to see Singapore rejecting the UN resolution. Singapore imposes a death penalty for drug trafficking offenses, murder, and some firearm-related offenses. The country reportedly has 50 people in death row who have exhausted all appeals. In 2018, 13 people were executed, including 11 convicted of drug offenses. Brunei, who also voted against the resolution, retains the death penalty law, even though no known executions have occurred since the country gained independence in 1984. Capital crimes in Brunei include murder, terrorism, drug trafficking, abetting suicide, arson, kidnapping, treason, mutiny, and perjury. In 2014, Brunei introduced a new penal code which implemented elements of Sharia law and instituted the death penalty by stoning for adultery, sodomy, rape, apostasy, blasphemy, and insulting Islam. The legal methods of execution in Brunei are hanging, and since 2014, stoning. Currently, it is estimated that there are about 6 individuals in death row in Brunei. One curious fact is that some of those nations that abstained from the UN resolution vote still continues to hand down death sentences. Indonesia, while not having executed anyone since 2016, has approximately 274 people in death row, including 60 people who have been there for more than 10 years. In 2019, Indonesian courts handed down at least 80 death sentences. Vietnam is the region's most prolific executioner. The country, which uses lethal injections after switching from firing squad in 2011, reportedly executed 85 people in 2018 for a variety of offenses including murder, drug crimes, and national security violations. This is more than any other ASEAN member. It also handed down 122 death sentences, meaning it now has more than 600 prisoners on death row. Laos retains the death penalty, although the last known execution took place in 1989. Crimes that are punishable by execution include murder, terrorism, drug trafficking, drug possession, robbery, kidnapping, obstructing an officer in the performance of his public duties, and causing his death or causing him physical disability, disrupting industry, trade, agriculture, or other economic activities with the intent of undermining the national economy, treason, and espionage. Executions are carried out by a firing squad. Although death penalties are still being handed out by courts in Myanmar, no prisoners have been executed since 1988. Most of the prisoners in death row were convicted of crimes such as murder, rape, and obstruction of justice by destroying evidence. Thailand retains the death penalty, but carries it out only sporadically. Since 1935, Thailand has executed 326 persons, 319 by gunshot, the last in 2003, and 7 by lethal injection. The latest was executed in 2018. Thai law permits the imposition of a death sentence for 35 crimes, including offenses against the king, murder, and drug trafficking. Even though Southeast Asian nations that voted yes on the UN resolution are uncertain allies of abolition, Malaysia, for example, although has made moves towards abolishing the death penalty and has imposed a moratorium on executions, still retains it as punishment for 33 offenses. In recent years, it has mostly been used for murder and drug trafficking convictions. The country currently holds approximately 1,324 people in death row. The Philippines banned the death penalty in 2006, but since taking office in 2016, President Rodrigo Duterte has on various occasions threatened to reintroduce it, particularly for drug-related crimes. Indeed, one could mount a case that Duterte has introduced a de facto form of capital punishment in his violent war on drugs, which by one estimate has killed more than 12,000 people, many innocent, all without trial since 2016. Aside from the Philippines, Cambodia is the only other country in ASEAN who has abolished the death penalty in 1989. Meanwhile, Timor-Leste, while not a member of ASEAN, is part of the Southeast Asia region and does not have the death penalty. In summary, 8 out of the 11 countries in Southeast Asia retains the capital punishment. Why do a lot of countries in Southeast Asia still have the death penalty? Despite having no evidence to support that capital punishment is an effective deterrent to crime, a lot of the retentionist countries today continue to cling to an outmoded zero-tolerance mentality toward crime. Politicians and leaders use the death penalty to show they want to be tough on crime despite it not impacting the crime rate. When it comes to public opinion, some argue that there are individuals who have committed seriously reprehensible crimes, such as serial rape and murder, that are deserving of the death sentence. However, it is not without reason that capital punishment has seen a global decline. The practice has attracted widespread criticism for its ethical and practical flaws. The United Nations stand on the issue is that there is no conclusive evidence of the death penalty's deterrent value. There's no link that having the capital punishment decreases the crime rate. It is near impossible to create a criminal justice system that accurately condemns those guilty individuals without occasionally exhibiting mistakes of fact, law, and bias. There are instances of innocents being inaccurately condemned to their death. It is also disproportionately targeting the poor who often lack effective legal representation. Any failure of justice in the death penalty's implementation is irreversible and irreparable. Capital punishment denies due process of law. Its imposition is often arbitrary and always irrevocable, forever depriving an individual of the opportunity to benefit from new evidence or new laws that might warrant the reversal of a conviction or the setting aside of a death sentence. What's your stance on the death penalty? Do you think it's a necessary evil or an outdated barbaric practice that has no place in today's society? Let us know in the comment section below. That's it for today. If you liked today's video or learned anything new, press the like button. Subscribe and ring the bell to get the latest content from the Daily Watch. See you next time.